Story 1. Last night, I realized I am not happy with where I am in life. Story 2. 2 weeks ago, I rewatched the movie Up. I thought I would be immune by now, but no, the first 10 minutes hit me like a freight train every time. Story 3. I do not see enough women saying it, so I will. Election night, specifically when the results came in. Story 4. I realized after election night that America as we know it was gone. Story 5. Earlier this year, and I am tearing up as I write this, I learned that my parent has terminal cancer. I cried when I realized that when my parent eventually passes away, I will have lost the person who loved me most, the only person who truly loved me for who I am. My parent raised me and sacrificed for me. Ballet is not a cheap activity to pursue. They put up with my nonsense even though I could not give much in return. I may have friends and romantic partners, but it is different. Story 6. I went to the movies last Friday. It was a great film. Everyone should see it. Story 7. About a week ago, I started the divorce process from my soon-to-be ex-wife, who was physically and mentally abusive. She kicked me out of our house and has kept our dogs away from me for 3 months since I left. I miss my dogs and would do almost anything to spend just one more day with them. Story 8. Almost every other day for the past 1.5 months since the breakup. Story 9. Years ago, I saw some terrible things. Nothing makes me cry anymore. Not even sad personal events. I feel less human. I am just numb to it all. Story 10. Yesterday, I watched Catherine explain to April and Jackson that their baby would be born with only minutes to live, but that they could still hold him in their arms until God took him home. Story 11. The day my mom came to visit me in jail is a day I will never forget. She is usually happy and has a positive presence. Seeing her force that happiness during the visit to make me feel better made me cry like a baby. It was 5 years ago, and I think I used up all my tears that day. Story 12. Last night, during a really rough time in my life right now, my best friend said some things over text that really affected me in a positive way. Story 13. Today, I told my significant other that I am going to leave him because I am tired of the way he treats me. This is his last chance, and I do not think he even cares. Story 14. Honestly, I have not had a proper cry in many years. I have shed some tears, but not a real crying session. It has been building up and will spill out soon. I hope so. Societal norms make crying very different for men. Story 15. Yesterday, I learned that a YouTube recreational vehicle vlogger I had followed for years had died. I will miss him. Story 16. Last week, I watched The Cure live on the British Broadcasting Corporation. They have a couple of songs that always bring tears to my eyes. Story 17. I cried with laughter after watching that Tickle Me Elmo video. Story 18. When I legally adopted 2 of my children, my wife's ex-husband, who is a real scumbag, signed away his parental rights so those children could have an actual father figure in their lives. Story 19. On election night, the result was bad enough, but then one of my older dogs went missing. I was terrified she had gotten hurt or died, so I cried while we were searching for her. We found her after about an hour of looking. She is happy and safe at home. Story 20. Last night, I, a veteran, heard a local school say upsetting things to veterans that dredged up old pain and mixed with new pain. Story 21. Almost 4 years ago I cried because my dad hurt me emotionally. He is not usually like that, and it is very rare that I feel hurt by my parents. They are more than parents. They are my friends, and I love them. But love can hurt sometimes. Story 22. An hour ago, while on a long, exhausting drive from town to town, the song Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd came on the radio. I am a man in my 40s. Story 23. My partner and I ended a 12-year relationship yesterday because of issues with his family. I have been moving furniture into a new place, and it all hit me again. I will spend my birthday and Christmas without him by my side. It absolutely kills me, but the emotions come in waves. Story 24. Yesterday, I was reminded that my dad passed away a few years ago. Most days I'm okay, but it struck me that he won't get the chance to meet my son. My son is a good toddler, and I think my dad would have really liked him. Story 25. A child at the local elementary school was playing George Washington in the school play and had a particularly moving death scene. I didn't cry when my own father was hanged for stealing a pig, but I cried then. Story 26. I was watching Death of a Salesman in my English class last week. It does not take much to upset me. I also nearly ran over a dead deer in my lane recently and had a small breakdown, shaking and crying, the whole thing. Story 27. Last week I moved out of the house that had me on edge for the past 5 years. The walls were thin. I could hear the neighbors' conversations, their Stafford dog barking whenever someone came to the door, and their flock of carrier pigeons, every summer from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. I could also smell their smoke through the walls and hear constant humming and other noises. All finally gone. Story 28. I woke up on Wednesday morning to see who had been elected president. Story 29. Earlier this year, in February, I was still coping with my father's passing just before Christmas the previous year, so the beginning of the year was challenging at times. Story 30. About a fortnight ago, I had an argument with my father. He spoke to me in a very belittling way and told me that I could not have boundaries and that I was living in his world. It was not out of the ordinary. Sometimes I want to die. I am sorry you are feeling this way. Are you safe right now? If you are in immediate danger, contact local emergency services. If you are in the United States, call 988. In the United Kingdom, call 116-123 to reach Samaritans. In Australia, call Lifeline at 13 11 14. Consider contacting a trusted person or a mental health professional, and let me know if you want to talk now. Story 31. It has been a lot recently. The second anniversary of my dad's death is coming up. Story 32. Last week a storm went through our province and blew the roof off our house. I cried while preparing to go to work because I care for patients and could not bear the thought of leaving my family during a crisis like this. Story 33. My beloved cat died of cancer at a young age. Story 34. 2 days ago, my mom was in a lot of pain and had very serious health issues. It really makes me wonder. If she left me now, I think I would leave this earth with her. Story 35. 2 minutes ago I felt rejected by my family, but then I remembered that nothing matters that much anymore. It is strange how I have been able to pull myself out of negativity more easily lately. I can cope with the emptiness, but I do not want to hold on to sadness for long. Story 36. Yesterday morning I was grieving our cat who had died of cancer 2 weeks earlier. Story 37. Tonight I reread the obituary I wrote for my father. I am proud of the job I did, but I am sad that I had to do it. So few words can sum up a life that meant so much. Story 38. When my cat was dying last year, all she could do was meow and reach out to clutch my finger with her claws. After that, she breathed shallowly until she passed. I made her as comfortable as I could. Story 39. I'm not sure about the first one, but the second is probably true every time I watch something. Story 40. I watched Good Will Hunting for the first time a couple of weeks ago. It hit me really hard when his friends went to pick him up and he was not home. Story 41. A month ago I was thinking about how much my son loves me when I cheer him on at his soccer games. I thought back to when I played sports in elementary and high school and how I did not want my dad at games because no matter how well I played it was never good enough and he always found something to criticize. I told myself I would never be that kind of dad. I would be the one cheering the loudest. Story 42. For about a week and a half, I have been going through a major heartbreak. Story 43. I cried when I saw an Instagram post in memory of someone who had lost their dad. I do not have the best relationship with my dad, but he lives in my heart, and even though I am in my early 30s, he still offers me a ride anywhere I want, even for a quick stop at the donut shop near our old neighborhood. Story 44. A few weeks ago, the stress of life built up too rapidly and caused a meltdown. Story 45. I am typing because I saw one of my cats licking the paws of the other. Story 46. I thought I had lost a job opportunity when my manager mistook me for another person who did not complete some paperwork in time. Story 47. Yesterday, I saw something I enjoyed and thought my older brother would enjoy it too. When I turned around from my chair to show him, I was faced with the reality that he had died almost 3 years ago, and there was no one to turn to. Story 48. 2 days ago was the anniversary of the passing of one of my friends. Story 49. I believe it was 2 days ago. I feel very guilty for rejecting my friend. I tried to do it as nicely as I could, but I cannot seem to stop feeling bad about it. I made them sad, and that makes me sad. Story 50. Last night I was thinking about how I would cope if I lost someone someday. Not that I have yet. Story 51. A tiny bit yesterday, and then definitely on Tuesday. Rejection is disappointing. Story 52. Anyone with common sense in the United States should be alarmed that a person accused of sexual misconduct could become president for a second time. Story 53. Laughing out loud. Reddit has not stopped crying for the past couple of days. Story 54. Sometime in early 2023, it only lasted a few seconds. Later that year, I was run over by a van, which required a 5-hour surgery. I endured weeks of semi-suicidal feelings and severe pain, and I was very alone for many months during recovery. The 2023 cry was probably an animal being treated poorly in a film. My emotions make no sense. Story 55. I am still working with my therapist on that. It has been decades. I feel broken, but I do not know how to cry. Story 56. In mid-June, I broke up with my then-girlfriend because I was not happy with the relationship. I sprung it on her, and it absolutely shattered her. She resents me now. Story 57. Last night I got sick at work. I do not like being sick or calling my boss to tap out, so I became a little emotional in the bathroom. I rarely cry in public. I am glad I did, though, because I was very sick and would not have made it through the rest of my shift. Story 58. I was looking at old pictures of my family and friends, and I realized I have grown up and those times have passed. Story 59. In 2002, my mother died. I am taking selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, so I do not have strong feelings. Story 60. Actually, I cried earlier this week, which is pretty good. Before that, it was sometime this past summer. I cry maybe 3 times a year at most. Story 61. About a month ago, I was driving to meet friends for lunch when I started thinking about my ex again. Story 62. About a year ago, I had memories of when my grandpa gave me dried out grapes and bought me random snacks from grocery stores. Those things always tasted good. It hits me pretty hard every time I remember his genuine smile. Story 63. It's been a while. Recently, I have been trying to make myself cry, but it has been difficult. Story 64. Last night, I thought I might not be able to go home because of new laws. Story 65. The last time I cried was a while ago, when my sister was facing a major life problem that would shape her future. I felt completely helpless because, no matter how much I wanted to, I could not do anything to make it better for her. The feeling of being unable to help someone you care about hit me hard. Story 66. When I saw David Gilmour live last week, I was captivated as soon as he hit the stage and began playing. Story 67. Just like 3 days ago, I feel that my extreme sadness has hindered my ability to cry. I want to, but I can't. Story 68. A la edad que tengo, me acuerdo de cualquier cosa triste y me dan ganas de llorar. Story 69. The day before yesterday, I cried all afternoon and into the night. My tears kept falling. I could not fall asleep because my eyes were too uncomfortable. When I woke this morning, I still felt like crying. Story 70. 3rd of August, 2021. My ex-fiancée left me without a word. After I discovered she left to be with anyone she wanted, my tears stopped and I have not cried since. Story 71. I had to repatriate my wife from Italy a few years ago after an accident. I stumbled upon an old email in which she wrote how much she missed hearing my voice, that hearing me made her feel at peace, and she thanked me for bringing her home. She passed away last year. I was completely devastated. We had been together for 30 years. Story 72. 2 years ago, when I had a retinal detachment, I came home to more problems with a family member, in addition to my eye condition and being punished for working. My rage boiled over badly. Story 73. I was in the stairwell walking to my car about an hour ago. Today is my birthday. I feel old. Recently, I went on a couple of dates with the first woman I have actually liked in quite a while. We seem to be going in different directions in life. I called to say that it was not going to work out, mostly because I did not want that decision made for me. She agreed and wished me the best. I said that I would still like to remain friends. No response. I was going to get dinner with my mom today, but I am so angry about her political choices that I told her I would rather spend the day by myself than with her. She has been texting me nonstop since. My entire family, except my mom, has been devastated by the election results. My dad sent a text to all of us apologizing for his generation failing us. When I spoke to him on the phone the night of the election, he was crying and could barely talk. Rent is late and I do not have the money to pay it. I just sent an email stating that I would like to accept a job offer 3 hours away from the city that I have lived in for the last 10 years. I do not really have any friends to spend the day with. People keep telling me happy birthday, but assuming that it is happy is a bit presumptuous. No, change that to right now. Writing this made me tear up. Story 74. Last weekend, my eldest daughter attempted suicide. She is doing much better now that she is receiving emergency mental health care at a proper facility. She has extreme anxiety. Unfortunately, neither my wife nor I were the cause. We would change anything about ourselves for our children. Her struggles are mostly internal with a few external triggers. Dense crowds in hallways and high noise levels are major triggers. Going from one class to another in a high school is particularly difficult for her. Story 75. I cry almost every day, either from the jokes in my head or from listening to My Little Pony songs. Story 76. Last night, my partner of 4 years left me. Story 77. Mother-in-law died on Tuesday. I checked for a pulse and called hospice. Story 78. I do not remember the exact day, but it was definitely because I missed my dad. He died in March 2023 of cancer. I miss him every day. Every time my kids do something new or when something exciting happens, I want to text him or call him, and he is just not there. It is a pain many of us live with, and I hate that. Story 79. It happened yesterday and will probably happen again today, tomorrow, and the day after that. Story 80. I have been overwhelmed all week, including right now. On top of that, I have been really sick. My landlord told me she is selling my house. My boyfriend is on a music tour and will be gone for 5 more weeks. I am trying to quit drinking. So yes, a lot. Story 81. The other day I realized I am going through a divorce and things are almost finalized. I am okay with not being with her anymore, but I am upset and anxious about a new and unknown future. I am apartment hunting and waiting for our house to be sold. I will be living alone for the first time in 10 years, and I feel intimidated by it all. When I think about everything at once, it becomes overwhelming. I am 41 now and worried about having to start everything over. Story 82. Last week I lost my best friend when a relationship failed and we broke up. In the same week, a family member was sentenced to a long prison term. I lost the 2 most important people in my life within a week. Story 83. The night before my divorce became final was strange. It was not because it was the wrong thing to do. It was because you never go into a marriage thinking that is how it will end. Story 84. The morning after Election Day, I got into a big fight with my parents. I was panicking about the results, and instead of trying to calm me down, they dismissed my concerns. One of them tried to physically throw me out after he realized I am bisexual. Then they scolded me for being a bad son after I could not stop crying. We all voted for the same person, so I do not know why they act like this. Story 85. Yesterday, I listened to a few songs that get me every time. I think it is good to cry about once a month. Story 86. I was playing The Last of Us Part 1 last week. I cried 4 times. Story 87. Yesterday, I saw a video of a boy who received a stuffed animal containing his mother's voice saying, "I love you," and the child immediately began to cry. As a child, I lost both parents, and that video affected me deeply. I am sure some of you saw it on Reddit. Story 88. A while ago, I felt like a failure. Story 89. Last night, I had a genuine scare about colon cancer, but I tested negative. Story 90. This morning, all the fear, grief, sadness, and anger about my fellow Americans making a horrible decision finally caught up with me. Story 91. No tears cried today because call center work is soul-deadening. Story 92. Last weekend I was treated like garbage at my workplace, so I hid in an office and cried out of frustration. Story 93. Wednesday at about 2 in the morning, or whenever the election results were called. Story 94. I have one of the most painful conditions a person can have, cluster headaches. They can make a grown man curl into a fetal position and wish for death. A lot of people do commit suicide, hence the nickname suicide headaches. It has wrecked my life, and I am getting closer to saying, fuck it. I started at 7 and I am 40 now and I am tired. I am really sorry you are going through this and that the pain has become so unbearable. Are you safe right now? If you are thinking about harming yourself or might act on these thoughts, please contact your local emergency number immediately or a crisis line. If you are in the United States, call or text 988. If you are in the United Kingdom, contact Samaritans at 116 123. If you are elsewhere, please reach out to your local emergency services or a local crisis hotline. If you want, I can help find resources, specialists for cluster headaches, or immediate support options. Story 95. Over the last few days, many Americans have had a rough week. Story 96. A few months before my grandma passed in 2022, the reality of Alzheimer's hit me really hard and I fell apart outside her house. Story 97. A few minutes ago, I watched Elmo get executed right here on Reddit. Story 98. Yesterday my car broke down and cannot be fixed. Rides to and from work cost more than I earn. I am drowning financially. Story 99. Last night, I missed my dad and worried about the crazy world we live in. Story 100. Last night I cried. I cry regularly, almost every day, especially in the morning in the shower when I think about facing another day full of unrewarding tasks and tedious things I do not care about. I feel overwhelmed most of the time. Every day feels like a long line of people needing, wanting, and demanding things from me, constantly picking away at me. It feels like soul death by 1,000 cuts. Each day there is less of me left, and sometimes that makes me cry. Story 101. Yesterday for a few hours, I am angry about the election results. My mental health is poor right now, 2 out of 10. Story 102. 3 to 4 weeks ago, I was crying at the bar I had been going to in order to make friends, but I kept getting shut out because of a situation with a man there that made everyone think horrible things of me while I had no control. I had a full-on breakdown, with the men sympathetically watching me cry over their and their friends' actions. I was ugly crying my heart out because all I had ever done or tried to do was be kind to everyone. It definitely killed the mood that night and probably made them feel awful. I don't know if the man, who had apologized for his actions about 2 hours earlier when everything came to light and his friends were angry, ever found out that I cried. All I ever told him was that it was not that deep and that I was not bothered or hurt by his actions, because he had been struggling with it for months. I thought showing him I was not bothered would help him, not knowing he was dragging me through the mud behind my back to everyone at the bar. It is all resolved now, and he keeps apologizing. He even apologized to my dad, who sometimes goes to the bar as well. Story 103. When I saw The Wild Robot, they said, "It's just a film for kids." Story 104. I am a 41-year-old construction worker. The last time I cried was April 7th, 2020, when John Prine died. I am usually not very sad when celebrities die, but that one hit me. I went through my workday fine, went home and ate supper, and then changed into more comfortable clothes. While I was changing, tears suddenly poured out. I felt amazing afterward. The last time I cried before that was in 2005 when my mom died. Story 105. I cried last Friday night when my daughter was crowned homecoming queen. She is kind and brave and defeated a mean girl. My daughter contracted a virus in 2nd grade that affected her brain. Our lives changed in an instant, and we were told she would never be normal again. As a family, we lived through hell for several years, but somehow she survived and is better than ever now. Story 106. Yesterday. I am due to give birth any day now. My midwife said I should get a delivery robe, which I forgot, and that I should not do any housework for 2 weeks postpartum. I cried for 10 minutes, and later I cried again from feelings of sheer incompetence. I spiraled into anxious thoughts about parenting, finances, aging, mortality, and the nature of reality. The good thing about the erratic hormones of pregnancy is that when they go down, they also go up. I am better now for now, and I will take it. Story 107. When I had to put my dog down, my daughter told my wife that I cried. Apparently, she had never seen me cry before. Story 108. This Tuesday night, I was listening to my favorite album in the world because of something completely unrelated to the elections. Before that, it was the end of August. Story 109. Right now, I am very concerned that my mother will become homeless or die very quickly given the stated objectives of my country's administration. She has a terminal disease, so I find myself praying that she dies before she becomes homeless. Last week I had dreams, but I have no hope at the moment. Story 110. Wednesday morning. We're so fucked. I just can't believe that 2 people I considered friends, whom I thought were intelligent, included one who did not vote and another who voted for Trump. Story 111. Basically, I feel like I am about to cry all the time. Sometimes it is because I find something beautiful. Other times it is due to frustration or sadness. I am always on the verge of tears, but I keep busy and have a good life. I am not even a very emotional person, so it feels strange. Story 112. A few months ago, my little calico cat died after 17 years. It was the saddest day of my life. Story 113. My teacher said I could not come up with a good summary. Story 114. Today is the anniversary of a schoolmate's death by suicide. Story 115. A few hours ago I cried. I cry almost all the time now. I was diagnosed with persistent depressive disorder over the past couple of years. A new diagnosis to add to the pile. I have had poor mental health since I was a child, with really rough teenage years and a lot of therapy, but nothing could prepare me for the last few years. I am not sure if I can be healed this time. That does not mean I will not try, but it is really bad. Getting bullied daily at school and being abused by a narcissistic sibling was a cakewalk compared to now. I am not well. I am trying to hang in there. Story 116. About an hour ago, Don McLean's American Pie was playing on the radio, and it hit differently this time. Goodbye, Miss American Pie. As the king looked down, the jester stole his thorny crown. Story 117. I think I'm constantly crying, but I'm too tired to cry. Story 118. Right now, I am in the bathroom stall after an interview that went terribly. Story 119. I'm really sorry you're feeling so overwhelmed. That sounds unbearably painful. Are you safe right now? Do you have a plan or access to anything that could hurt you? If you are in immediate danger, please call your local emergency number, for example 911 in the United States, or go to your nearest emergency room right now. If you are in the United States, you can call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline 24/7. In the United Kingdom and Ireland, Samaritans are available at 116 123. If you tell me what country you are in, I can help find a local helpline. You don't have to face this alone. If you can, consider contacting someone you trust and let them know how you feel. I can also help you find resources, draft a message to a friend or loved one, or when you feel safer, help edit the text you asked about. Do you want me to help find local resources or stay and talk now? Story 120. This morning, one of my clients made a racist comment to me. I was in a vulnerable state at the time and broke into tears in the washroom. Story 121. Yesterday I cried. I have been crying almost every day for the last 3 months. Story 122. 2 days ago I had an anxiety attack because my life is hectic and I am not happy with where I am. Story 123. I honestly don't remember. When I had my TM last August, I didn't even cry. I was more mad at myself. In June, when my kidneys stopped functioning, I still didn't cry. I don't know if I can anymore. I do try, but nothing ever comes out. I guess I cry in a different way. Story 124. Earlier this week, I was watching a sad episode of the reboot of my favorite show, Story 125. 2 days ago, I had a major panic attack. I am pregnant and thrilled. I have wanted this for so long, and I am so happy and relieved to finally be pregnant after fertility treatment and other interventions. However, work gets me down regularly. I had a job I loved, but I was only a contractor. I was supposed to be hired full-time, but they outsourced. I knew that job and I was good at it. Within a month, I was training people who started with me because I understood it. I excelled and advanced quickly, but it was not meant to be. I have a new job now. Seemed great on paper, but I do not get it. I try really hard, but there are so many moving parts. It is messy. It is a startup and disorganized chaos. I know it is getting better as things improve, and I see that, but I still feel like I am in a vast open wasteland of confusion. Problems are only pointed out when I am wrong, never when I am doing things properly. Both of my managers have told me I was wrong about something which left me confused, and in the end I was correct. I get no apology and no admission that they were wrong. They just take the credit. I guess it is normal, but it sucks. It makes me feel like I am crazy. It does not help that everyone tells you constantly how low stress you have to be while pregnant. You have to be calm. Nothing can upset you. You need to relax and take it easy. Meanwhile, between the realities of real life like work, there is even more pressure. I have to think about what I am doing all day and what I am eating. Will my food be toxic to the baby? I am only 4 weeks in and I am relatively terrified of food. There are a lot of rules about it. There is just a lot. So I broke down. Story 126. On Wednesday, during my therapy session, my wife and I separated. For the first time in my 42 years, I am starting to open up all the compartmentalized boxes that are stored in my head. Emotions are strange. I have never dealt with them before, so I figured that to be the best version of myself, I need to do the work. Story 127. I'm watching Violet Evergarden. In one episode, a mother writes many letters. Hit me hard. Story 128. In July 2023, an unfortunate event occurred. Prior to that, in April 2017, my father passed away. Story 129. I cried when I got a job offer last week. I graduated from college over a year ago and could not break into the job market. Story 130. Yesterday, because I hurt my forearm and wrist about 2 weeks ago, I had been wearing a sling for a week. It healed enough for me to go to gymnastics, but I fumbled and fell off the vault table, so now I am back in my sling. Story 131. Pretty much all week. It is not just for political reasons. I will be fine mostly, but I am really worried for my gay and transgender friends and family. I was involuntarily transferred at work in manufacturing to a department that works 12-hour shifts, which I have never done before and would not choose. I was feeling burned out doing 4 days of 10-hour shifts. On my second day in the new department, I received a verbal warning for not meeting the daily minimum, and I broke down during that meeting, which was embarrassing. There is nothing I like about the department, and I am trying to find another position. Story 132. The Lord of the Rings ending. Annie Lennox, Into the West. My late mother's favorite track. Story 133. On November 6th at 5 a.m., when I saw the election results, there was some screaming mixed in. Gotta love being queer in America right now. Story 134. Yesterday, my borderline personality disorder caused me to lash out, and then I became so angry with myself that I cried. Story 135. Wednesday. I am contemplating the next 8 days of waiting to learn whether I have cancer. Story 136. Wednesday night, the election terrified me to the core. Even though I am from Ireland, my partner lives in the United States, as do my aunt, uncle, cousin, and countless friends. I am still scared. I broke down that night, letting everything out. Every fear I had came out. Story 137. I'm really sorry you're feeling this way. Are you safe right now? If you are in immediate danger, please call emergency services now. In the United States, call 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you are elsewhere, contact your local emergency number or tell me your country and I will find a crisis hotline. Edited text. An hour ago, Struggling to find a job and a 7-year relationship ending all at once left me feeling overwhelmed and hopeless. Story 138. On May 5, 2023, I had to guide my 12-year-old dog over the Rainbow Bridge. Story 139. Yesterday, I saw gifts from someone who is no longer in my life. Story 140. It was my wedding day. I was happy and still am, but I was also sad that my family did not come because everyone is so isolated and dysfunctional, and all of my friends are dead. I missed them and wanted my best friend as my man of honor, as we had planned. I felt guilty about moving on and allowing myself to be happy when everyone I loved would never get to do the same. Story 141. About 20 minutes ago, I remembered that last year I had asked Santa Claus for a baby. He said that he really hoped I would get it. Story 142. 4 or 5 weeks ago, I had an overwhelming realization of how much I have to be grateful for in life. My parents, my wife, and a child on the way. It came after a very busy day at work when I was exhausted and returned to a freshly cooked warm meal while surrounded by those I love most. I also felt some guilt for not appreciating my family as much as I should have during that particularly busy period at work. Story 143. My grandmother passed away almost 5 months ago. She was, to me, like a second mother. She basically raised me because my mother was a single parent of 2 and had to work a lot to provide for us. My grandmother took care of me and became my best friend. She died suddenly, and I couldn't say goodbye to her. What makes me happy, though, is that I was able to make it possible for her to meet my son on her birthday. I live in a different country than she did. I think that made her the happiest. I miss her dearly. Story 144. I cried. I don't know. It happened a few hours ago. I was called out in front of the class for failing my exam. I got a little too upset. Story 145. On Wednesday, not for the reason you would think, but because of the aftermath of a car accident my husband and I were in, I was at the urgent care clinic. After the physical exam, the doctor asked if I was mentally and emotionally okay. I broke down and he comforted me. Story 146. Over the summer, I stupidly played cats in the cradle while clearing out my dad's storage unit after moving him to a nursing home. Story 147. Today I am reflecting on allowing situations such as being invalidated by someone I thought would take action, experiencing sexual assault, and feeling lonely in person because I do not have a romantic partner. Story 148. This morning, I was cleaning the kitchen and doing the dishes when Russian Roulette by Porter Robinson came on. Story 149. On Wednesday night, reading The Giving Tree to my child gets me every damn time. Story 150. Probably a few weeks ago, one of my best friends passed away. Story 151. About 6 years ago, my mother died when I was still a child. It upset me, but I mostly held back because I felt it would be polite. I would like to cry again, but over the past years, even when I felt like banging my head against a wall, I could only keep a neutral expression, with the occasional tear when I did not blink. Story 152. I divorced my ex-husband 5 years ago and have been tear-free since. Story 153. I have no idea. My selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor keeps me from crying, and I kind of hate it. Story 154. A few days ago, I had a huge, pointless argument with my husband. It boiled down to the fact that we were both sick and tired. Story 155. About 25 minutes ago. It has been a rough week in every way. I am tired. Story 156. At the dentist's office, they told me the dental work would cost more than $6,000 and that my teeth will fall out by the time I am 30 if I do not have it done. At least I have a decade of teeth left. Story 157. In 2017, I was dumped by my girlfriend and fired. My grandfather had a stroke. I should not have watched Logan. Story 158. Last night, I realized I am tired of not having a local friend group and of depending on the women I date for my social needs. Story 159. For months, I have buried everything so deeply that I have no emotions right now. Story 160. Yesterday, I embarrassed myself by accident. I am socially awkward after years of disability and limited contact with the general public. Story 161. almost every day for about 4.5 months. It did not used to be like this at all. I am going to have to make a change. This is difficult. The stereotype that men do not feel emotions because of societal expectations until it suddenly pours out is true. Story 162. Internally, constantly. Externally, I do not know. Maybe a month or two ago. Story 163. Last night my daughter said for the first time, "Night night, Dada, abababo," which means, "Good night, Dad. I love you." Story 164. I watched the ending of the last episode of Arcane a few days ago. The final scene was devastating. Jinx killed Silco, who had been like a second father to her, then slowly walked up the ramp as she accepted herself as Jinx instead of Powder and launched a rocket at the council chambers. The pain and helplessness felt so raw that I cannot help but tear up every time. I cannot wait for Season 2. The first episode is tomorrow. Story 165. 2 days ago. I live in the United States. You can probably guess the reason. Story 166. This morning I have been thinking about losing my wife because she is a vulnerable undocumented immigrant who has lived here since she was 2 and has worked here her entire adult life. It is not her fault that she was brought here. I fell in love with her. We are married and are trying to fix her immigration status. But it is taking a long time and it is not as straightforward as we wish. We have put off having children because we do not want to endure potential family separation. If that did happen, at least it would be just us and no children would have to experience that trauma. I have felt very depressed thinking about the possibility of losing her to deportation. I am very scared and sad. I hope things work out. Story 167. Yesterday morning and Wednesday evening, I was numb and barely functioning for most of the day. After a small sip of whiskey, I rocked back and forth on the couch, screamed sobbing for 15 minutes straight. It was perhaps the worst panic attack I have ever had. It did leave me feeling calmer, as if getting those toxins out of my system helped. Story 168. Wednesday morning, when I woke up, I felt the mood of the world. Story 169. This morning, several of my nephews had traumatic experiences. I am far away from them and not in a position to return home yet. Story 170. Last night I processed my trauma response to the sexual assault I experienced as a child and how I would like to approach my current relationship. Trust is hard to build after something like that, but I am managing it and he has only given me reason to trust him. Story 171. Last night at physical therapy, emotionally it has been a while, but I am due. I cry to release my frustrations. Story 172. I'd love to cry. I just can't do it. Being locked in fight or flight is a bitch. Story 173. The 1980s. Even with my numerous real-life tragedies earlier this year, my eyes water and I am depressed, but crying is out of reach. I was hit enough as a child for crying that I simply cannot anymore. Story 174. This morning I reflected on moving overseas about 20 years ago. My parents visit once a year at most. My father is approaching 80. He is an incredibly sweet and kind man, and it is getting really hard to say goodbye because I have watched him grow old from afar and it feels like we probably do not have many visits left. My mother is about 10 years younger, so the feeling is not as strong with her. She and I have a slightly difficult relationship. No deep problems. We just do not always see eye to eye and are not as close as my father and I. I hope I can be as good a man and father as he is. When I first moved abroad, we were all so young that I never thought about this. But now that he is old, I think, my God, we have lost so much time. Now that I have children of my own, I appreciate how hard it must have been for them to have their child move halfway around the world, to see their child and grandchildren only once a year. I am rambling. I just miss my dad. Story 175. I almost cried last night when I checked my preliminary SAT score. Now I realize I do not have to put so much pressure on myself. I still have the Scholastic Assessment Test to improve. Story 176. On Wednesday at 2:30 in the morning, I accidentally checked my phone. Story 177. Earlier today, I felt fed up with having cancer. Story 178. The other day, I was just so overwhelmed with everything. Story 179. I got a puppy last night and am utterly exhausted. I love that furry little one, but the fatigue hit me hard. Story 180. 2 weeks ago, my mom had a major medical event in front of me, and I had to administer CPR. The whole experience was traumatic for both of us. But she is okay now, thank God. I cried in the days afterward. It's hard to unsee what I witnessed, including my mom appearing lifeless on the floor and everything that followed. I'm grateful I was with her and able to help. It was something I had never done before, and I wasn't sure if it was helping or if I was doing it correctly. It was frightening and will likely affect me for the rest of my life. Helping a stranger would be intense, but because it was my mom, my emotions were even stronger. Story 181. Yesterday, a woman spoke on behalf of the nonprofit organization to a group of donors. She shared her life story: drug use, prostitution, incarceration, and losing her children. She then described how the programs helped her get back on track. Finally, she told us, "I got a second chance at life because you chose to give. I was overcome with emotion." Story 182. This morning, yesterday, Wednesday, I think I cried Monday and Tuesday as well. Story 183. About 2 months ago, I experienced severe depression. These days I feel mostly numb. Story 184. About 30 minutes ago, I saw a picture of my 14-year-old dog enjoying the sun. Story 185. Today is my birthday, and my wife gave me some very thoughtful gifts. Feels silly to cry, but it just hit me in the right spot. Story 186. Watching James Conrad hit an insane shot and imagining myself celebrating with everyone there made me emotional. Story 187. It happened 4 hours ago, but it represents about 6 months' worth of tears and stress. Story 188. Today, at a gas station, I sat in my car. On my way home from work, I had stopped for a drink and a snack. After getting back into the car, I just sat there staring at the steering wheel. It is that time of year when it is cold and gets dark by 4:30 p.m. I realized I did not really want to go home, not for any particular reason. Going home meant the day would continue: eat, shower, play video games, sleep, and repeat. I am out in the world, an adult with free will, and the only option I felt I had was to go home and do it all again. Story 189. I think it was a year ago when my dog died. Life was so bleak that I honestly started to smile when I cried. It meant I had been happy enough for something to make me sad. Story 190. Last weekend, my eldest child was sick, and the younger one had a meltdown. Story 191. Just the other day. It has been a rough last 5 to 6 years for my wife and me. We live in a very small town on the Oregon coast because my wife wanted to be closer to her family. We moved during the pandemic when remote jobs were plentiful. Now, not so much. I have taken a job with the local post office, so we have some income coming in. In that span, I lost 2 jobs, one remote and one on-site due to a layoff. We had to move from state to state. My wife is disabled and cannot work, and she does not receive disability because our government is terrible. We made the tough decision to move out of the house we had called home for 4 years on the coast and live with my wife's father and stepmother. The only thing that gets me through the day is remembering that every situation, including ours, could always be worse. Thanks for reading. If you cried because of your current situation, do not give up. You are worth it. Story 192. I have wanted to cry for years. I last cried when I was around 15. I am 24. Story 193. I do not know, probably before puberty. I have tried to cry. I cannot. I need a good, hard, releasing cry. Wait, that is a lie. I did have tears in my eyes when I watched the ending of the movie The Creator, but that is very rare. Story 194. Men do not cry, and if a man needs to, he should do it alone or with the only 2 people who matter: his mother or his wife. Story 195. Today, I read an article about a teenager in Texas who died after having a miscarriage and not receiving the medical treatment she needed because of the abortion ban. Story 196. Last night, I watched The Golden Bachelorette. Men tell all. I am a crier, so it does not take much for me to tear up. Story 197. Last night, I suddenly gave myself a reality check about how much I am worth to others and how much effort I am receiving in return, and it made me cry. Story 198. This morning, my social media platforms were flooded with posts about the election, and it brought up a lot of emotions for me. Story 199. Election night. Once Pennsylvania was lost and I knew it was over, I finally cried as I wondered how this could happen after January 6th and whether I would ever see a female president in my lifetime. Story 200. Yesterday, I watched a Turkish soap opera. It was very beautiful. Story 201. A couple of days ago, I cried over losing my husband of 24 years to cancer, which happened 3 years earlier. He died 4 months after we discovered the cancer. Story 202. Last Friday, I had a miserable day at work with a lot of emotional baggage and no sleep. My boss called me at 10 o'clock in the evening the night before after I finished a cup of coffee. Story 203. Today, in the car, I feel conflicted about going home. I am frustrated with my life, exhausted by illness, and unable to live the life I want. I feel inadequate. Story 204. My eyes water a lot when I try to fall asleep, but I feel so bad overall that I cannot tell whether they are just dry or I am actually crying. It's strange, but that is how my life is. Story 205. A couple of weeks ago, when he left, I was on the kitchen floor crying and screaming. I am so thankful for my children because when they are home, I refuse to break down around them, and that has helped. As the days pass, it is getting easier. Story 206. Last night, after the election results and learning that my boss doesn't value me, I felt pretty worthless. Story 207. A few days ago, while listening to the Prisoner of Azkaban audiobook. Story 208. Yesterday, I rubbed my eye while preparing spicy Korean noodle soup. I had spicy residue on my finger without realizing it. Story 209. A real cry occurred about a month ago when my cousin's daughter died of an overdose. Story 210. I have never chosen to cry in my entire life. I have always chosen peace, health, friendships, youthfulness, usefulness, learning, accomplishments, fun, happiness, freedom, science, empowerment, independence, and life. Crying has occurred throughout my life. It has always been involuntary. The screaming, fear, pain, anger, problems, sickness, and tears are a destructive force. It happened within the past 24 hours. Story 211. Last night, I experienced job stress and burnout. I feel like I have no real life and I am exhausted. Story 212. Today and yesterday, I have been overwhelmed by the election. I don't care if I sound dramatic or foolish saying that. I wanted a woman to become president so badly, and I wanted all of us to feel like humans, not numbers on a ballot. I followed it the entire time, hyping myself and others for what could have been a groundbreaking moment in history, and now it is over. I feel like I am grieving what might have been, and it saddens me because I feel the weight of everyone else's sadness. My heart hurts a lot. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.